Emma, this is unacceptable.
Welcome to Grace Mitchell Stories, where every tale carries a spark of hope, kindness, and courage. Today's story will remind you that wisdom often comes from the most unexpected places. The sprawling glass towers of Hamilton Enterprises gleamed under the morning sun, a fortress of wealth and ambition that touched the clouds above the city. Inside those polished walls, executives moved briskly in tailored suits. Assistants carried tablets and files with practiced urgency. And the name Hamilton carried weight like gold. At the very top of this empire sat Richard Hamilton, a man whose sharp mind and relentless drive had transformed a small company into a global powerhouse. He was the kind of CEO who commanded respect the moment he entered a room, his presence filling the air with both admiration and intimidation. But in his life, there was one person who never quite met his expectations. His daughter, Emma. Emma was 21. Studying business at a prestigious university her father had proudly sent her to. Everyone expected her to be brilliant, a reflection of Richard's genius, the heir to his empire. But reality told another story. She had just returned from campus with her latest report card, and once again, it was filled with failure. Emma sat in the back seat of the sleek black Mercedes, staring at the paper in her trembling hands. Her chest tightened as her father's driver pulled through the towering gates of their mansion. The paper felt heavier with every passing second, as though it carried not just grades but her father's disappointment written across it. Her father was waiting in the study when she entered the house. Richard Hamilton always seemed larger than life in that room, surrounded by books of law and finance, trophies of business excellence, and photographs of him shaking hands with world leaders. He sat behind his mahogany desk, his sharp blue eyes lifting from his laptop to land on Emma. His voice was even, but his tone carried the weight of judgment. Emma hesitated, then held out the paper with trembling fingers. Richard snatched it, his eyes scanning quickly. His jaw tightened. "Another failure," he muttered, tossing the paper onto the desk as though it burned his hands. "Every test, Emma, every single one." Her throat tightened. "I tried, Dad. I studied not hard enough." He cut her off, his voice cold. "Do you understand what this means? Hamilton Enterprises needs a successor who can lead, who can think, who can fight in the world I've built. And you?" He gestured at the paper. "You're not ready." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't run a company. Sorry doesn't protect this family's legacy." Emma swallowed hard. The words pierced deeper than any grade ever could. She turned and fled the room before he could see the tears finally break free that night. Emma sat on the balcony of her bedroom overlooking the manicured gardens. The stars above blurred as tears spilled down her cheeks. She whispered to herself, "Why am I such a failure? Why can't I be who he wants me to be?" Little did she know, the answer would come from someone she had barely noticed before. The next morning, Emma left her room early, her eyes red from sleeplessness. As she walked through the quiet halls of the mansion, she heard the faint sound of humming. Curious, she followed it into the atrium, where she found Mr. Carter, the janitor. He was an older man, with silver hair and gentle eyes that carried the weight of years. He wore a plain uniform, his hands rough from decades of labor. Most people in the household barely noticed him, but Emma had always thought he seemed kind. This morning, he was polishing the marble floors, humming an old tune as though the world were at peace. Emma hesitated, then whispered, "Mr. Carter." He looked up, surprised but smiling warmly. "Miss Emma? You're up early." She shuffled her feet. I failed again. My father's furious." Mr. Carter leaned on his mop, studying her carefully. "You think failure defines you?" Emma looked at the floor. "Isn't that what it means? I failed, so I'm a failure." The old janitor shook his head slowly. "Failure isn't the end, child. It's just a lesson in disguise. What matters is what you do after." She frowned, confused. "But I keep failing, over and over." He chuckled softly. "Then perhaps you're learning the wrong way. Sometimes success doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from seeing differently." Something in his voice made Emma pause. She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Mr. Carter's eyes twinkled. "I used to fail to miss Emma. In fact, I failed more times than I can count. But I kept going. And eventually I learned the secret." Emma's curiosity sparked. "What secret?" He smiled knowingly. "The secret is this. The smartest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who know how to rise again." Emma thought about his words long after he returned to his work. That night, she pulled out her books again. But this time, she didn't push herself until exhaustion. Instead, She studied in shorter bursts, pausing to think, to ask questions, to connect ideas. She remembered Mr. Carter's words, see differently. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Emma's approach changed. She stopped chasing perfection and started chasing understanding. She failed small tests still, but each failure felt like a stepping stone instead of a wall. One evening, while reviewing for an economics exam, she grew frustrated with a problem she couldn't solve. She slammed her pen down. I'll never get this. Mr. Carter, passing by with his cleaning cart, paused at the doorway. Stuck. She nodded, embarrassed. He walked in, peering at the paper. With surprising clarity, he explained the concept, breaking it into simple terms that made Emma's eyes widen in understanding. You know, economics, she asked. Stunned. He chuckled. I know a thing or two. But Emma pressed further. How? You're a janitor. His smile softened. I wasn't always... And in that moment, the secret began to unravel. It turned out Mr. Carter wasn't just a janitor. Decades ago, he had been a professor at a university, specializing in business and finance. Life had taken an unexpected turn. His wife's illness, crushing medical bills, sacrifices made to care for his family. He had given up his academic career and taken humble work to survive, but his mind was still sharp, his wisdom deep, his knowledge vast. Emma listened in awe as he shared pieces of that wisdom with her. Night after his duties were done, Mr. Carter tutored her in secret. He taught her not just facts, but how to think critically, how to analyze problems, how to believe in her own mind. Her confidence grew. Weeks later, Emma sat for another round of exams. This time, when the results came back, she didn't fail. She didn't ace everything either, but her grades had improved dramatically. When Richard Hamilton saw the report, his eyes widened. You've improved? Emma stood straighter than before. Yes, Dad, and I'll keep improving. For the first time in years, a flicker of pride touched his features. But he didn't know the full story. Not yet. Months passed. Emma's grades climbed higher and higher. She began to participate in class discussions, even impressing professors with her insights. Her father noticed, astonished by her transformation. One evening, during a family dinner with several executives present, Richard spoke proudly of his daughter's progress. She's finally becoming the leader I always hoped she'd be. Emma's chest swelled with both pride and guilt. Pride in her growth, guilt in the secret she carried. She decided it was time the truth came out. At the next board meeting, Richard invited Emma to present an analysis of a new project. Executives filled the gleaming conference room, their eyes skeptical as the CEO's daughter stood at the front. Emma spoke with clarity and passion, presenting ideas that even seasoned directors found compelling. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Richard beamed. That's my daughter, he declared. But Emma shook her head softly. Dad, I didn't do this alone. The room fell silent. Emma took a breath. Someone helped me. Someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She turned toward the corner of the room, where Mr. Carter had been quietly cleaning. Gasps filled the air as every head turned toward the janitor. Emma smiled. This man isn't just a janitor. He's a teacher, a mentor. He taught me how to think, how to rise after failure. He changed everything. Richard's face hardened in disbelief. Carter, this is absurd. But Mr. Carter met his gaze calmly. It's true, sir. I only guided her. The strength was hers all along. The boardroom buzzed with whispers. For the first time, Richard Hamilton found himself speechless. He looked at his daughter, her eyes shining with determination. Then at the humble man who had quietly shaped her transformation. Slowly, Richard rose from his seat, his voice softened, almost reverent. Thank you, Carter. I owe you more than I can say. The janitor bowed his head. No thanks needed, sir. I only wanted her to see her own light. In that moment, Richard's heart shifted. For years, he had measured worth by success, by numbers, by empire. But here was proof that true greatness lay not in power, but in the quiet strength to lift others. Emma went on to graduate with honors, her confidence unshakable. She didn't just inherit her father's company, she transformed it, leading with empathy and wisdom that set her apart. And always, by her side, was the humble janitor whose secret had changed everything. Because in the end, the greatest teachers don't stand on pedestals. Sometimes they carry mops. Sometimes they wear uniforms no one notices. But their impact, their legacy is immeasurable. Emma never forgot Mr. Carter's words. The smartest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who know how to rise again.